Hey guys, VaulSC here, how you going? We're going to take a look at a game of infiNity between the Onyx contact force and the Caledonians, the Highlanders, the Scottish Ariadnans, and it's going to be a game of comm center. So mission is mostly about button pressing. It has changed a little bit. With Season 10, this was one of the missions where I feel they sort of brought it back to being a worse scenario rather than pushing it forward, although with most of the ITS scenarios they did make it better. So this one, it used to be a matter of either getting a lot of points by killing your enemy designated target with your data tracker, or having the majority of the consoles, and specialists would play a bit of a role as well. Now it's really just about getting more consoles. However, I still like the scenario quite a lot because it's not so much the dichotomy of first turn versus second turn like it is in some missions. With this one, if you've taken first turn, you've devastated your opponent, and let's say you've got 6 out of 9 of the consoles collected, to swing it back, your opponent needs to do a lot of moving, a lot of button pressing, and that may take them more orders than they actually have. Whereas there's some scenarios like frontline or safe area or acquisition, where you've just got to get one guy to one position, and maybe that'll be enough to swing it. Not going to run through the army list this time because this was a game against a newer opponent. It was a little bit one-sided. The army lists weren't necessarily optimal, and really just going to run through this one quite quickly to see if we can glean any learning from it. So let's just get going without too much sort of preliminary stuff. Okay, so this table, a bit different from what I normally play on. I just play on my own scenery so much, as you guys know if you've watched a number of my videos. So we're trying to use some of the terrain available at the store for this. You can see the 9 objectives, the grid here. So the idea is to use specialists to press the buttons on them and swing them over to your side and have more of them at the end. We've got Onyx over here, and then Caledonia over this side. I am taking the first turn for this particular game, and that's because I'm confident that if I do enough damage, my opponent won't be able to get enough boots on the ground to press the buttons, but also because I'm running that beautiful Umbra Samaritan who really likes to mess things up in the first turn, and if you can get him over to the other side, get some kills in close combat, he's really difficult to remove. Also comment, I really love these this tree scenery over here with little pink flowers. It really makes this area of the table quite lively. And the good thing about this is that you can agree that they don't actually block line of sight, or that they are true line of sight, but you can count the little bases as cover, or whatever you feel like doing to make the game, the scenery conducive to a good game. Okay, so Kernow, of course, being in the Link team, this HVT model is actually representing my Nexus hacker. You need the hacker in Onyx to be able to put assisted fire onto your beautiful Unidrons. So just to explain the setup, that photo we just saw showed the interior of this building, where you've got Kernow prone in this corner and the hacker prone in this corner over here. So Kernow obviously is a member of the Link team, but then you've got his friend, the Plasma Sniper, up top. You've got a couple of forward observing Unidrons over here, and I believe this guy's the K1 combi rifle. And the Link leader, of course, will be Kernow in the building, just to have that radius for the Link team. And of course, you can see my HVT way in the distance there. Dr. Worm prone at the back, ready to move out and do some repairs. This is the left-hand flank for my deployment. I'm going first and deploying first. So just looking from that corner across the deployment zone, you can see this guy we just talked about, the K1 combi rifle. I've managed to land an Imatron out in the middle of the table. We've got a Icodron here, of course. This is a Flash Pulse R drone back here. There is a Mark Rep tracker with HMG on the roof, but it's prone, and there's really very little else on the table that has the height to be able to get to him. There is an exclusion zone, mind you, so we're not really deploying out in the middle of the table. I believe this Imatron here is actually scattered out there. So that's more of a look at the center. In the middle, you've got my Nexus Lieutenant right next to the R drone, so you can see the position of the Mark Rep flat on this building. The point is to be able to move across to this edge or this edge to get line of sight to the really obvious ARO stuff that my opponent might be packing, whether that's some sort of War Core, Cataran, that kind of thing. We saw that Dr. Worm was on the left-hand side of the table. He's got a helper bot over here, and the helper bot's hanging out there so it can move around and repair the Q drone if it needs to. This Q drone has a plasma gun, and I don't run that very often, but the reason why I'm running the plasma gun instead of the HMG, which is the normal choice, is that I already have a very good HMG in the form of the Mark Rep Tracker. I've already got a very good, Spitfire with the Umbra Samaritan, and I've already got an amazing ranged gun in the form of that Unidron Sniper in Link Team. So I'm trying the plasma gun this time around. I've tried it a couple times before. It's a bit hit and miss, but it can have a lot of potential. And from the right-hand side flank, looking just across the deployment zone, I think everything you'll find there is pretty straightforward. The other Imitron landing way over this side. Okay, so my opponent, new player, just bought his army, still painting stuff up. He's got Uxie McNeil over here next to this objective here, rather than Superior infiltrating with her. I feel that's okay, given that he is not going first, doesn't really want to just land right next to my guys and immediately lose her. So you've got a couple of volunteers at the back by the looks, cheerleading. This is a Cataran here, and he's got another Cataran somewhere else. Can't remember where he put it, but there are two Catarans. This is a doctor next to one of them to revive it. William Wallace, and more volunteers backing him up around this side. I think this is a Scots Guard with Mark 12, I think. So there's Wallace and his crew. Again, this guy's still getting used to the game in general and not just Caledonia, so he hasn't really formed, the most correct of link teams in my view, but he's still in the process of trying things. So you got another Scot over here. I think he was forming a couple of Scots duos, so he's got a DEP, he's got a submachine gun in there. Some of them are prone, some of them are hanging out. This model up here is his designated target, so I'll get extra points for killing that in my first turn. He's got a camo marker over here, which I think is a SAS trooper. We'll try and recall what happens during the game. Okay, so another photo of Wallace just up close. That's the lieutenant. My reserve trooper is the Umbra Samaritan. The plan is just to barrel down the flank. He hasn't really got any Catarans or anything covering it just yet. And try and get into close combat, suck up some souls, and put this guy in a position where he'll be really annoying to remove. My opponent's reserve trooper is a Cameronian, and I tried to talk him out of this because, again, he's still a bit new to sort of what will happen in infiNity if you just deploy a model out in the open when you're not going first. But even with the high physical stat and the ability to throw smoke grenades and the fact that my Mark Rep's not going to be able to get line of sight to this particular position, having the Cameronian right out the front there is probably not very well advised. I would have been putting it back behind one of the buildings, to be honest. Okay, so first thing is I've got a separate group 2 with the plasma Q drone in it. So the plasma Q drone is moving out first to get some shots off. It does more damage with the plasma rounds than the Spitfire will. So I'm just utilizing group 2's orders first to clear a bit of a path, then moving in with Umbra. So this guy moves around here and gets a bit of a line on this Cameronian. Now the Cameronian is able to successfully put down a smoke grenade as a response to this, but that's good because that actually will help me to get the Samaritan in close combat. Really, really important. Okay, so once that's done, and this marker here represents where the smoke's going to be, so that blocks off the designated target and everything, so nobody can be affected here by the Samaritan until it comes in. The Q drone can now advance across this way, come around here, and take out this Scot there, which he's going to very easily be able to do. So that's the positioning. We're actually even showing a... Oh, don't want to edit. Where am I up to? So this is showing basically a little laser pointer line through there where we've got line of sight to him. So a Q drone, of course, just kills him without too much trouble. And we noticed that the terrain actually had a little bit of a gap here. So the Q drone able to just punch just precisely through this little line here at the Cameronian and fire his plasma gun. And that does actually enable him to put damage onto the Cameronian before he runs out of orders. So a bit sneaky there, seeing that little gap between the objective and the building, but it did work, and the Q drone goes in for some more damage before retreating back behind this objective here, which he will get cover from. So Q drone with its plasma hits, even though I think the plasma is counted as normal ammunition when you've got total immunity, it does amazingly get 2 wounds through on the Cameronian and drops it. So then with Group 1's orders, I can advance with the Samaritan, and you can hopefully appreciate how good a position this is for the Samaritan. He's just laughing all the way to the bank here because there's a smoke grenade there. That's going to allow him to come into close combat with the designated target, kill it for the objective points, gain 2 wounds, and then start moving through to actually remove more corpses and things like that here. So that's kind of sickening, right? So moves in through, he's destroyed the designated target. These 2 green pebbles represent +2 wounds. So this is a Samaritan with 1, 2, 3 wounds on his profile, and he still has NWI in the bank, so he could sustain 4 wounds really before dying. Moving through now, able to get line of sight onto this model here, shredding it with the Spitfire. The camo markers in the distance just too scared to reveal themselves. Then the Umbra can move all the way around here, start firing at people like William Wallace, the volunteers, and so forth. This is a terrible position for him to be in because he can lose his lieutenant quite easily. Wallace does manage to block with a smoke grenade, but just really lucky of him to be able to get that off. Had he taken a couple of hits there with the Spitfire, it could have been lights out. We're still having a lot of fun with this Umbra, so he used a super jump to come up behind this Scots Guard here and shred him as well. I think you guys can sort of appreciate that when the Umbra's having a good game, it's having a really good game, like sickeningly good. When it's having a bad game, it's just a nothing piece and a waste of 40 points. But it sort of comes down to what is your opponent doing to react? How well are they deploying? What's the terrain like? There are a lot of variables there. So for serious Onyx players, I don't think the Onyx Samaritan is the safest and most reliable choice for the long term. But it's in a tournament environment, I don't think it's a bad or an inadvisable choice for like one of your 2 lists if you're confident that you're going to come across some matchups and some terrain layouts where he can really shine, but you've really got to know what to do with him. So he ends up way at the back here, and when my opponent's turn begins, we're talking through the fact that he's lost about 4 or 5 models, and he's got an Umbra Samaritan with 3 wounds on the corner. So because, you know, a bit new to infiNity, I'm sort of explaining a few of the things that he can do. So what I thought he could do is he can move across here, lay a smoke grenade down. There is a Q drone in the distance which can, you know, fire a plasma shot through, which again is really risky for Wallace. Like, he doesn't want to be hit by a long-range plasma TR bot. But once that's down, he can actually go into close combat with the Umbra. And what I was explaining to him here is that the Umbra can attack back onto Wallace, but Wallace can berserk onto him. And with the help of several volunteers in a link team, you know, every hit's an explosive sword to the face. So given that he's losing, he's at a bit of a disadvantage. He can take a bit of a risk here and go into close combat, because removing it with anything else is a pretty bad idea. If he's trying to go in there with chain rifles and stuff, well, the Umbra's got the hyperdynamics thing where it's got +3 to dodge, it can engage, it can shoot back, it's got a really good flash pulse. So it's just not great, and he could realistically waste an entire turn trying to remove it. Whereas with this, if he kills it, he's started to recover the game, and, you know, if he gets really unlucky and Wallace dies, well, you know, so be it. The game was, you know, going pretty badly anyway. So he does move in. The Umbra does try to attack back with Prothion, doesn't kill Wallace. Wallace forces him to take like 9 different armor saves or something crazy, and the Umbra, despite having 4 wounds, is destroyed. Then we can move on. So he's moving out now with a Cataran, trying to get on top of the building. And this is a bit of a gambit here, where he's got one Cataran climbing up on top of this terrain piece, and another one situated here. And they're trying to coordinate order onto the Unidron here, unfortunately, which is going to mean that each Cataran only gets a single shot. The Unidron gets 2 shots back, so it's 2 for 2, but the Unidron must focus on one target, because when you are responding with an ARO in your reactive turn, you can't split burst. It has to be on one target. So the Unidron getting shot by one of them, but putting 2 shots back onto the other. And the result is that this Cataran survives, this Cataran does not survive and gets wasted, and I believe the Unidron is actually still there at the end of that little volley, so not really the best outcome. Uxie McNeil, I think, is a specialist operative as far as I recall, so she's actually pressing the button on this objective to recover it and gain it for Ariadne. Then moving through to the next one up in the middle and pressing the button on that as well, so at least getting some points on the board. Then we're moving over to Onyx turn 2, assisted fire going down on this Neutron. Just forget the fact that it says enhanced reaction. It's actually not, it's assisted fire. Just getting ready to pummel that Cataran with obviously assisted fire and the full value of a 5-man link team, or a 5 alien link team, and goes and destroys it. Then we can move out with the group, Kernel leading the charge, everybody getting into formation. I'll have to spend a full order jumping off the building with the Unidron, but that's not going to kill it because it can go down to ground level. And then we move in, of course, and press some buttons on this objective closest to us. Uxie McNeil has gone back into camouflage, but that's not too much trouble for Kernel with a decent willpower, good close range, the 4-man link bonus or 5-man link bonus for the Discover. So he's able to uncover Uxie and then move in with his plasma gun and link team bonus and shred her. And that will allow him to recover this middle objective as well. We're at a point now where the sniper can move across and gain line of sight to maybe 1 or 2 other different Scots on that other side of the table with unbelievable accuracy and devastation. And then, as you can see from the line here, Kernel having gone tick with the first one, tick with the second one, and tick with the third one. So this entire row across one flank is captured for combined army, and very little Scots left, unfortunately. So you can sort of see how even without a second turn, if you're really bullying your opponent, you know, it's pretty easy to win. So we've got a Plasma TR bot still set up on the right-hand side, and we've got a whole link team set up on the left-hand side. Not much more that Ariadne can do. Moving in with the Hacker and Doctor as well, just in case they need to recover some objectives later. And then in our opponent's next turn, Volunteer moving up, trying with a rifle. Surprisingly, at this late stage in the game, or I say late when I mean second turn, but it feels late, trying to shoot the rifle and actually getting surprisingly lucky and getting some hits, killing Kernel. Still dealing with the sniper up here, moving up to deal with him as well. Doctor trying to move around for the objective, but just doesn't have enough orders, and basically that's the end of it. So only a couple of turns in, but Ariadne pretty much wrecked. Again, learning game, newer player, new Ariadne list, just trying a few different things. I explained to him that, you know, 2 different Scots duos is not really as effective as, say, a 5-man link team with Wallace in it. A bit of heavy weapon firepower in there. And of course, deploying the Cameronian out front is going to end badly. But obviously, Onyx very effective, and Samaritan, when you give him the chance, especially if the enemies throw smoke grenades for him to hide inside, his close combat ability, very, very powerful. William Wallace also very powerful, but you know, it is what it is. Hope you guys enjoy this one. Hopefully I have a bit more content in the near future. Maybe do a bit more strategy and list building videos, since I'm in the mood for that. I'm actually painting up some Invincible Army stuff on my desktop right now. I've got a little Zuyong missile launcher right here. And working quite a lot on my OSS Aleph, so they'll be featuring as well. If you guys haven't already, don't forget the Discord is still going really strong. Right now, just checking it, we've got 4 people who are registered players at the moment. If you play any games against us, you get a little green. Your name is in green, so you're counting as a player. We've got 17 people online by the looks, plus another 79 members. So as you can see, it's a pretty big community. Lots of people up for games of TTS. And I might be able to feature some more games on my channel when I get the time. For now, though, hope you enjoyed this one. We will catch you later.